Evening, everyone. I'm Larry Hendricks. I'm the Public Relations Coordinator at Camino Community College. But I took a trip this summer with Trevor, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about it. I got interested in the Camino de Santiago a long time ago. I'm not going to tell you exactly how long ago, but I was 17, I was in high school, and my history teacher was talking about this trip that he went on and enjoyed. And it was a transformative experience, and he suggested, if you ever get a chance to do it, you might want to give it a try. I said, but, I'm not Catholic. And he's like, well, you don't have to be Catholic to do it. A lot of people do it just for the transformative experience. And, people do it in this country as well. They do the Appalachia Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or a variety of other trails like that. But, he planted the seed when I was 17 years old. And luckily, I got a chance to do it. Guy at Coconino Community College organized it for us. His name is Carl Cook. He's here in the audience. And it was a wonderful experience. Trevor, how did you come across this?
So my name's Trevor Welker. I'm the graphic design specialist at CCC. Back in 2015, I think I took a Spanish 101 class, and it kind of opened up my horizons to future travels and endeavors. And 2017 rolled around, and I was into making new goals for that year. And so I met Carl in the fall around this time last year, and it just so happened, planets were aligning, and I said, that sounds like a cool trip that I want to go on. So I started, saving my pennies, and before you know it, the trip was here. I've always been a big hiker. I've done a lot of hiking in the Grand Canyon, and I really enjoy doing that particular thing. So this was right up my alley with packing everything I'd live out of for 2 weeks on my back and just trying to make it work. And so I think that's kind of how I fell into it. I didn't have, the seed wasn't planted early on in my life. It just kind of fell into my lap, and I embraced it and had a really cool experience.
Well, it's a bucket list thing for a lot of people, and it's a bucket list thing for me. So it was really nice to be able to, I'm not, in my 30s or even my 40s anymore. So it was really nice to do a bucket list thing while I was still young enough to enjoy it. We have a formal presentation for you, but before we go into the presentation, I thought we'd give you a little taste of what we experienced. And from there, we'll kind of go into talking about the ABCs of it. Before I even get started on this presentation, the first question I got when I showed this to somebody was, "Hey, what are you doing putting Scottish music with a story about Spain?" And what's interesting is that's actually traditional Galician music. It was very fascinating for us to be traipsing through Spain, and when we get to communities and they'd be having a festival or something, they'd be playing bagpipes. It was quite. It just seemed odd that, but apparently Celtic cultures were all over Europe, and they may have migrated to the British Isles at some point. I'm not quite sure of the ins and outs of it, but I found it fascinating. Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about the history, not too much. We're just going to touch on it, primarily because we don't know that much about it. And then we'll talk about our journey, which we know a lot about. And what we did to prepare, and what we brought with us, stuff like that, and lessons we learned. So, history, the Camino de Santiago. Basically, Santiago is the name for St. James, and he was an apostle of Jesus, and he was assigned to the Iberian Peninsula to spread the gospel a long time ago. Anyways, he was there and worked in the Iberian Peninsula for quite a while. And when he returned to Judea, King Herod at the time beheaded him. And his body was, the story goes, like miraculously returned to the Iberian Peninsula, Galicia, about 800 years later, something like that, and laid to rest in the place that is now the city of Santiago. But when that happened, Catholics, people of the Roman Catholic faith would make pilgrimages either to there or to Rome or other locations that were important in the Catholic faith to basically expunge themselves of some bad deeds that they did, sins, whatever. And so over the years, basically from the 1100s on, Santiago became a pilgrimage location, and it increased in popularity over that time. While this was happening, apparently there's a story about one of the main symbols of the Camino. It's a scallop shell, and we'll show you plenty of examples of it. But it was a scallop shell, and where's mine? Mine broke too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Carl gave us one for each of our backpacks, but they have a hard time surviving, The scallop shell began to symbolize the journey and the completion of the journey quite early on, I would imagine. And one tale as to its importance, this guy right here symbolizes a guy who was like, he was either a knight or he was a member of a wedding party. And when the ship carrying the remains of St. James were being returned to the Iberian Peninsula, saw this, the horse he was on that fell into the ocean, but somehow miraculously he didn't die. And when he came out of the water with the horse, he was covered in barnacles or crustaceans and scallop shells, because scallops are very prevalent off the Iberian coast. And ever since then, the use of the scallop to prove that you did or you took or you completed the Camino increased in prevalence, I guess, or its importance and its use.
Kind of the first miracle of St. James coming back on the boat, and apparently it was unmanned. So how does someone's body get returned 800 years later unmanned to a destination, and then miraculously this person can save them? So the scallop became the icon, the symbol for future pilgrims, and it's riddled throughout several different pathways.
And the purpose of taking a journey on the Camino wasn't just for religious faith. The more contemporary we get, for instance, my example, I'm not a Catholic, but the mental and the physical challenge intrigued me, and it's always intrigued me, and that's why I decided to give it a try. But when during the course of history, there were several different routes identified, and people nowadays can take any of these several different routes. Several of them are by water, and several of them are by land, and that's why Carl gave us a trip that covered not just Spain, but Ireland as well, because there's actually a Camino trip that starts in Ireland in the town of, what's the city called that we were?
Dublin?
Yeah, Dublin. God.
That
Dublin.
big city?
Yeah. And, in Dublin, and most of that journey is by water, and there's not as much travel by land, but just as dangerous and just as arduous before there were, like motorized boats and things like that. This is kind of like the more popular route, and this is the one that we were involved in, this one on the bottom here. It's called the Camino Frances. And then there's another route on top that goes along the top of the Iberian coast, well, the Spanish coast, called the Camino del Norte. The Camino Frances, which is the one we did a little portion of, we actually did from Sarria, which is right here, to Santiago, about 118 kilometers, is in total, most people like to start in
Like this place right
Saint
here.
Jean-Pied-de-Port, and it's close to 800 kilometers, which I think is roughly equivalent to 500 miles or so.
And should we talk about where we started and?
Yeah, before we do that, I just wanted to say, in Dublin, there was a place to start, Waterford, there's Bristol, Plymouth. There was all kinds of routes that people took to get to Santiago. And some of them went up through Portugal, through Spain, all the way in through France into Spain. And then and there are several people who we met on the trail who said, I'm going to do a Portuguese route next and stuff like that. But we focused almost entirely on the Camino Frances.
What's that?
That's what Carl said. It was a traditional. Can you explain, Carl?
The Francis?
Yeah.
It's not the original, but it's one of the routes that was used to get from Spain to France, and it became it's actually part of the Napoleon route. Napoleon used it to attack Spain. So it wasn't 100% religious when it first started, and it just picked up along the way. That's how it came about.
And it appears that most of the people who we came across on our journey were taking the Camino Frances, and a lot of them started in Saint Jean-Pied-de-Port. It takes a while to do that one.
And by the time we had met them, they had already been on the trail for about 30 days. So we really got to see like how they were faring and hear a lot of their stories. A lot of people on the trail, you can tell like if they're just starting out or if they've been on it for a while, just they have a look about them, determination, perseverance with the weather. It's really tricky and but really cool to talk to because I met lots of walks of life and they were all open and willing to discuss. And like Larry said, we were all there for different reasons. A lot of them were there for religious, some personal, but it was really cool to get to know a lot of these folks, and it was cool. So
we started our journey in Ireland. And believe it or not, I couldn't believe it either.
This is really where it starts.
The St. James Gate, which is the traditional pilgrimage starting point from Ireland, is right here at the largest Guinness factory in the world. And actually, you get your pilgrim passport, which came from Ireland, stamped there, right there, on a wooden bench in the Guinness factory. It's pretty amazing.
It's like a 12-story amusement park.
It's huge.
It's
keep massive.
Climbing.
And if you like beer, especially dark beer, oh my gosh, it's heaven. What did you ask for? You didn't ask for.
So don't go to the Guinness factory and try and order us something besides a Guinness, because they get a little upset with you.
You tried to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, while we were in Dublin, I mean, Carl taught us a lot about what the Pilgrims did to make their preparations to leave Ireland and go to Spain. But while we were there, we also got to see the city of Dublin, which itself is amazing. I mean, it's got history that goes back to the Vikings and before. And it was a fascinating experience for me to see something that was built in the 17th century right next to something that was built in the 20th century. It was just to see that much history and that kind of a spectrum of human experience in a block, like a city block, just fascinated me. And, I'm a writer and a book lover, so, I got to go to Trinity University and see their massive library there with all those old stacks, and went to the James Joyce Library. How many people have read Ulysses? How many of you understood it? Yeah, there was another museum devoted to Irish writers, and there's a lot of them. And it set my heart at ease knowing that an entire culture of people just were still really fascinated with the written word and the importance of the written word and just the beauty of it to communicate and to say things that we all think, feel, and experience. What did we do after we hung out in Dublin for a while?
On the second way back?
I don't know.
On the return journey?
The first time there.
Well, when we first arrived in Dublin, I think everyone else decided to sleep on the plane except myself, because I can't sleep. It's just not size and things. And so I stayed up, and by the time I went to bed, I had been up for about 38 hours. And Carl, we went on this like $10 bus tour for an hour, and I'll tell you what, that put me to sleep. So I don't remember much, but then the next day I think we got up and traveled, and then I think I got the walking pneumonia on the way back. So my last part of Dublin wasn't great either, but I made the best of it.
And we took some field trips, some really fascinating field trips. What was the first one? The Rock of Cashel or something like that? Old abandoned castle. Just the architecture and the green. So many different shades of green, from forest green and just almost dark greens to, really light. All colors of it. That's why they call it the Emerald Isle. It was just fascinating. And it didn't rain at all while we were there, which was apparently odd.
The Irish were like, what is going on?
Right. So blue skies, yeah, it was wonderful. We were there late May and early June. Yeah.
What was that? The Rock of what?
Cashel. Cashel. It's on a hill.
We actually have a picture.
Yeah, we have a picture of it. It's on a hill overlooking just beautiful countryside. And then the second one was the Blarney Castle, kissing the Blarney Stone and stuff like that. But when we went, you had to wait 2.5 hours to kiss the Blarney Stone. It just didn't appeal to me, so I decided to.
We decided to hike around.
Yeah,
because we we wanted more.
And it's a beautiful area. I mean, just gardens and buildings. And we were there for a few hours, and it didn't seem like that at all. I mean, there's just more to see than was possible. Anyways, we were there a couple days.
3 on the front, I think, 3 on the back.
And then we stayed in a hostel, which I'll talk about. Yeah, it's a different experience. And moved on to Spain. But here's some pictures of, here's that's Cashel, right?
Cashel.
Yeah, that's Cashel. And this is where the Blarney Stone is, downtown Dublin, stuff like that. Cobblestone streets, that's just cool. Spain, wow. We did a lot of traveling initially to get where we wanted to go. Took a plane from Dublin to Bilbao, right?
And Bilbao's a very interesting city because it's very modern and new. And I was doing a little bit of research, and apparently that was like bombing practice for World War II, Nazi Germany, because Spain was split, and the dictator at the time in southern Spain said, "Well, go ahead and bomb them." So they practiced on that city, but it was an interesting city. There's a Guggenheim Museum there. Mm-hmm. If we had more time, we definitely would have stopped there. But
we were rushing through to catch a bus, which we missed. But that's when we, started to slow down. Carl gave us the best advice ever. He's like, "Hey, man, just be calm. Let whatever's going to happen. It's not going to go the way you want it to, no matter what. Just be calm, be cool, be collected." And so I took that to heart, and it was actually a very nice trip. Even though we missed that first bus, and we got into Burgos, which is that Trevor standing right there. That's actually the Camino. That's part of the Camino, and you can tell by the little scallop shell right here. And those scallop shells light the way the entire way.
This is about 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
And we're walking around Burgos trying to find a hostel to stay in, or a monastery.
Yep,
albergue. And they all close at 11. So we're trying to pool our Spanish together and look around, and we finally found a place. So then after spending the night in Burgos, woke up and
another bus
to Lyon. And the terrain of Spain varies drastically. It reminds me a lot of Arizona. You go from desert to some rolling hills to mountains, and then to more rolling hills. But yeah, then we got to Lyon, and
hold on one sec. I just want to kind of give them an idea of what we're talking about.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, we flew into Bilbao, which is up there. Do you got your pointer still?
Yeah. So we flew into Bilbao, which is right here.
And then we took a bus to Burgos.
And then from Burgos, we took a bus to Lyon. And this whole section here kind of reminded me of just flat rolling, like just flat fields. Hot, no shade, just days and days of walking.
So yeah, you're just storing that away. So if I decide to do this at some point in the future, which I personally have decided if I ever have enough money, I'm going to do it, it's going to be a boring stretch of road.
But
it's
lots of Camino walkers we talked to that came from St. Jean up until this point, Burgos, said it was just like extremely mountainous right here. And that, to start your trek off really strenuous and then kind of go to flatland nothing. I don't know, it's just kind of polar opposites and puts you in that mind frame and lets you start thinking.
So after we got to Lyon, we ditched the buses and we took a train to get to Sardia at the
right there,
western edge. And that's completely in the, what is it, province or state or area of Spain called Galicia. And they say it like that, Galicia. They don't say Galicia, they say Galicia. And
Come again?
yeah. Don't say, I don't know why, but for some reason, so how long has Galicia been a part of Spain? They lose their mind. They lose their mind. They're like, Galicia is not Spain. So just word of caution. Let me go back now. And in Sarria, we overnighted, right? Yeah, we overnighted in Sarria at a
monastery.
A monastery, right? And then the next morning we started our walking. There's several different types of lodging as you do your walking. So far we did hostels and we did albergues. And could that one that was the monastery, could that be considered a refugio, or you actually had to pay money? Yeah. Yeah, refugio is basically a place for pilgrims to go when they can't afford to pay for regular lodging. So it's going from the cheapest to the most expensive. So you go from refugios to albergues and hostels to pensiones, and then finally, if you're rich,
just get a hotel.
You stay in a hotel. And we stayed in albergues and hostels, which were 10 to 13 euros a night, which is pretty cheap. I stayed one night in a pension just because. When you're around, 20 people, they've been walking all day, they don't smell the best, they had garlicky food, they snore. Yeah. It just.
No one snores, Larry.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was nice to have, semi-private room for a day and, catch up and have a bath by myself. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And the food, of course, was delicious. They have a thing called a tortilla for breakfast, but it's not the kind of tortilla that you're familiar with here. It's like potato omelet with onions, and they make them huge, and they cut you off a wedge like a piece of pie, and it'll last you. And if you're walking, 12 to 20 miles a day, it's good. It's a good meal to have on your belly. So I started many a day with, some tortilla, but it's not the kind of tortilla you're used to. And of course, café con leche. You got to have your café con leche, coffee with milk, steamed milk. And I usually don't have sugar in my coffee, but it's kind of like they insist in Spain to make sure that you get plenty of sugar in your coffee. What did you enjoy? Oh, we were looking for, what was it, pulpo? We were looking for pulpo everywhere, because the guy we went with, Eric the Red, the red-haired guy, looked like a Viking. He wanted to try some octopus, so they call it pulpo there.
And as it progressed on, we got it closer to Compostela.
Yeah, but did he ever have any?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because he kept saying, I want to get pulpo. So, okay, fine.
I really enjoyed. I guess I didn't have any expectations of what the trail would provide me, and I just thought it would be like hiking in the Grand Canyon for some reason. But as we went, we realized every couple miles you just cross a cafe, and you walk in, and if you're thirsty, you get something to drink or something to eat. And so it was surprising how convenient it was, but how local too. That all the food, they didn't have a huge menu. It was usually there were goats and chickens out back that they got the stuff from, and bam, that's what was the menu or what was on the crop. And it was really neat to experience that. So I think every morning waking up and knowing that, I'd get my coffee and then I'd be ready to go for 10 more miles, or have a siesta next to a strawberry farm and then have a cerveza that the guy was selling. It was really cool moments like that.
Yeah. And at the evening, you've walked, as far as you've walked, and all the restaurants have, they call it the menu del dia or menu del dia, and it's basically a 3-course meal. You get a salad or some kind of appetizer to start with, and then the second course is something hearty, like stew or spaghetti with meat or, whatever. Steak, potatoes, a lot of potatoes, and a dessert. And then you get
A
either
bottle of vino.
some wine or some beer or soda pop with your dinner. And it's like 10 euros. 10 euros for something that's going to stay with you for a while. I was completely impressed and satisfied everywhere I went. Just say satisfecho every time you go somewhere. Satisfecho, gracias, satisfecho. And then the walking. The first day, is kind of like the day you feel it out, see if you're going to do all right. I think we did 14 miles, 15 miles, 18 miles, 12 miles, and 12 miles. So we did 75 total, 118 kilometers. First day, 14 miles.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Rolling hills. Sometimes you crest over these and you could see the next town, 8 miles away. It was really cool. And then the people we met along the way. And the cool thing about walking with us that we decided as a group is that we're going to start here and we're going to end here. I don't care when you get there. Just make sure it's, within this day. And so that's what we would do. So sometimes I'd walk with Larry. Sometimes I'd walk with my friend Eric. Sometimes I'd walk with Carl. But it was really just how I felt, what I got into that night, what my agenda was. It's all about what you guys want to do for yourself.
And there's plenty of times to travel with people. They share their stories, where they're from. I met folks from the United States, of course, even a couple of people from Arizona, Tucson, go figure, in Spain. I mean, so they're wearing wildcat hats, Anyways, Australia, Japan.
You meet so many people, you forget their names, so you start calling them by the country. You're like, hey, Venezuela! And you'll meet them a couple of days later on the trail. And I remember there was a couple from Florida. Mm-hmm. We met up on the first day, and then on, I think, day 4, we met up again, just randomly. They were coming out of a cafe as I was walking in, and, we're just like, Florida, yo, Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting.
And that reminds me, every time you go into a cafe or a curio shop or an albergue or something like that, you want to get your passport stamped. And this passport is basically your proof that you walked, the part of the Camino that you walked, so you can later get your official, this is how far you walked, and then get your official Compostela, which means completion of a portion of one of the Caminos to Santiago.
In every place you stop, the stamp's different. Mm-hmm. So, depending if I walked with Larry, we have the same stamps, or different days I have different stamps than he does. But as long as you get a few a day.
Two minimum. You got to have 2 minimum.
You prove that you at least started here and ended there, so that at the end, you can get your certificate.
And I only had one for one day, but they took it.
You had to pay them off, though.
But apparently some folks, they'll say they did it, but they didn't actually do it, and I just can't imagine people would want a Compostela if they didn't do it. But apparently that happens. So. Huh? Oh, right. And the walking, I hike. I spend a lot of time hiking. And so I really enjoyed the walking because you're walking through Spain. You're not driving through Spain, although we did do a lot of driving through Spain. The last portion was gorgeous because we were going through farmland. And, it was amazing to walk through farmland where the farmhouse is older than our country. The farmhouse, the actual house is
The
older than
roofs of a lot of the villages we came to were made of slate. And so, I mean, moss from just decades and even centuries.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
And a way of life that doesn't really do a lot of change. You know, I'm seeing families working cattle, families working fields, and, you know, salt of the earth and generous as heck, you know, inviting you. I mean, several times it happened to me, you know, just come on in. You know, they have this nice spread. You know, any pilgrim can enjoy it, and just leave what you can. You know, and I always left, you know, way more than
Yeah,
I
there
should.
was the first night we arrived in Salia. It was 10:30 at night. Our monastery closed at 11, and we were hungry. So 3 of us left, myself included, and went to this restaurant that was in the little village about 15 minutes away. So we're like, oh my gosh, we got to get our food. And this bar was the only place that's open. So there's people in there having fun, and we order. And we tell the owner, hey, we got to get back by 11. And you know, in America, this is where I think it would differ. But we got our order, and by this time it's like 5 minutes till 11. And the guy at the monastery was pretty strict. I mean, he was like, I'm shutting that door at 11. So I tell the owner this, and he's like, no problem. You know, so I'm like, well, what's going on? He's like, mi esposa is going to drive you up the street. And we must have went at 60 miles an hour up the street, all 3 of us in this tiny car. But it's just that hospitality that I really haven't experienced too often here for strangers. That was really cool.
And, you know, even in the albergues and the hostels, just friendly folks,
Yep.
always willing to, you know, share a smile and show you the ropes in case you didn't know them. But Carl always knew the ropes, and he was like, put your shoes there, you know, put your bag there. You know, it was great to have Carl along just to, you know, kind of tell us which way was true north and stuff like that.
Did you know before where you were going to stay, or did you just see the town and start looking?
Yeah, a little both. So some of them we just stopped and looked, and some Carl actually had made reservations, and we actually had a place to stay. It just depended. I mean, sometimes albergues can fill up by noon, 3 o'clock. I mean, the quicker you get to your next place, the better. You know, the earlier in the day, because you don't have to compete with as many folks for the albergues or the hostels and stuff like that. Unless you call ahead, which we did a couple of times, say, hey, I want to make a reservation.
It's an albergue.
I did not have cell service, which was kind of a hindrance. I didn't pay for cell service, so I used a lot of WhatsApp, you know, to talk with folks at home. It's like an app on my phone. So every time I got Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi in Spain, I would talk to my wife or whatever.
It's an albergue.
An albergue is like a hostel. It's the same breed, you know, it's communal sleeping arrangements, communal bathrooms. The monastery we stayed had 30, 40 people in one room on bunk beds. Some of them were a little bit more private. For instance, our group of 6 had one room to ourselves in some places. It just depended. And here's...
You didn't make it? We just sleep outside?
Well, I mean, I did bring a sleeping bag. We did bring sleeping bags in case of that eventuality, but we didn't need to.
I would have slept outside, though.
Yeah.
Did you have to speak Spanish?
You were okay if you knew a little bit of Spanish.
Right.
There was definitely times we got into a pinch, and thankfully Larry and Anna were there to get us out of it. It definitely helps to know Spanish. Even just a 101 class was highly helpful for me, and I really got to enjoy the conversational piece of things. But I also had the confidence of these guys to back me up. Like, what did she say? Or
What was your pitch?
the day that we missed our bus when we got to Bilbao.
asking directions on how to get to the bus station.
just a very northerly city in Spain. Not a lot of folks spoke English. And so they were there and got us some directions on how to catch this train, to get to the bus, to get the next bus. So I think that would have been really stressful and confusing for someone who didn't know a lot of Spanish.
So I think it would be very beneficial to know just some conversation. You don't need to be fluent by any means, but definitely to be able to go, restaurante, baño, things that, are albergue, stuff that are kind of essential for survival, I think.
With technology these days, though, there were a few nights that my friend and I got into some conversations with non-English speaking Spaniards, and we were using Google Translate because it got so heated we couldn't keep up. And so we're like, okay, we got to figure out how to do this. So we downloaded Google Translate, and next thing you know, we're communicating between one another, and it was really cool. The language barrier broke down at that point, and friendships were being established.
So was it Spanish or Castilian Spanish?
It was Castilian, but Spanish is still it's still understood, but there's definitely some twangs to it. And
the farther west you go, the more odd it gets, man. It starts getting really odd when you finally get to Santiago, because it's got a bunch of Portuguese in it. It's almost its own sub-Spanish language. It's really interesting, intriguing. And they'll look at you and go, when you say something to them in Spanish.
Here, are you?
Right. But when they do understand you, they'll go, vale. They get it. Vale. Okay.
Yeah. You kind of meet in the middle.
Right. And here's some pictures of Spain. What Trevor was saying earlier, the Camino provides, the Camino takes away. I think I started out with a 28-pound pack, but by the time we were done, my pack was 18 pounds. So, and then all these markers tell you exactly how far you are from Santiago, which is kind of neat, and they do it in kilometers and meters. So, wow, okay, I'm walking 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. It could either be really reassuring, or it can seem like, man, this is taking a long time to get here.
Yeah.
Some are new, like these. These are relatively new.
These are older, right?
And
here,
these are
though.
much older, yeah.
These were when we got closer to Compostela. And I imagine there's probably more of those along the way prior, right?
They just replaced them all.
Oh, did they?
As you can tell, graffiti, there's a ton of graffiti. That one I thought was cool because it said pray and chill. And Larry's over there throwing up the peace sign, so.
And you also find a lot of these, I don't know if you call them shrines or just, places along the trail where people leave stones and other mementos. And I got a little story. I have a friend from Bulgaria. His mother still lives in Bulgaria, and it's always been her dream to do the Camino. And she said, be sure and take a rock with you. Why would I take a rock with me? And she goes, well, put everything in your life, wish it into this rock that, is a challenge in your life, or that is negative, or that you want to let go of. And while you're on the Camino, at some point, let go of that rock. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. So I picked a rock in my backyard, and, I put, all the challenges of my life and all the things that I want to leave behind into this rock, and I took it with me. And I was gonna set it in a really, really special spot. I'm like, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. And then I'm sitting there flipping it in my hand, walking along the trail, flipping it in my hand, flipping it in my hand. I'm walking along. Where am I gonna drop this rock? And I dropped the rock. And every other rock on the ground looked just like this rock I dropped. So that's where I left it. But Trevor, his moment was a little more special.
Yeah, Larry told me about the rock, and I thought it was a really cool idea. And so I put all my energy and thoughts and hopes and negativity into this thing. And that was actually where I dropped my rock, was on this guy. But it was really cool. there were lots of these, I guess you could call them shrines along the way with piles of these rocks and mementos of people's lives. And you could just feel the energy coming off of it, just how many people it had taken to build this mound of trinkets and stones and things. Pretty incredible.
Somber, almost, just,
Makes you reflect. And
yeah, spiritual, you know, pictures of obviously dead relatives and people they were probably hiking for or wishing were on the hike with them. It was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. And then, of course, the symbols. Man, those yellow arrows, your best friend. I mean it. Those yellow arrows mark the way. They truly mark the way. And sometimes they make those yellow arrows out of scallop shells. It's really fascinating. Oh, here's one right here. Yeah, a yellow arrow made out of scallop shells.
yellow scallops.
So it's like two symbols in one for that one. That one's like a graphic designer's dream.
Well, and the symbol on the building over here was actually it was taken in Ireland.
Yep, this one here.
Yep.
The exact same symbol. Beautiful. And I really like how the scallop shell kind of mimics the Camino routes. You know, all these Camino routes start from all these disparate points and they end up in the same place, just like a scallop.
So the colored ones were kind of like a shop we came across. Lots of travelers would identify themselves with these scallops, but they had sayings on them and prayers and
Fleur de lis, all kinds of things.
yeah. So travelers would buy them and throw them on their bag as decoration.
And it's amazing the different calibers of pilgrims that there are. You know, there's the ones who are wearing, you know, like gear I could never afford, no matter how long I work. And some people wearing sandals
Or barefoot.
and nothing, you know, totally dependent upon the universe and the kindness of strangers and refugios. It was amazing.
That's kind of where I appreciated Larry hiking ahead every day, because I was definitely more like, I'm going to take a nap over there right now. And so I knew I would have a spot, but thanks, Larry.
Yeah. Preparation. Okay. We both brought 40-liter bags. You recommended heavier, didn't you, or bigger? Yeah, he recommended a 55-liter bag, but we got away with 40 liters.
What it looks like full.
And yeah, I put in my personal bag, I put in 3 pairs of hiking pants. And you know, I never, in my entire hiking history, ever used like Prana or Columbia lightweight pants. But I tell you what, they're worth their weight in gold when you got it on your back. 2 pairs of shorts, same thing, lightweight. I actually broke down and bought some of those, just grumbling the whole time, like, these ain't gonna be any different. But it was amazing. It was like I was Paul on the road to Damascus, and I saw the light. It was beautiful.
He had a smile on his face.
Yeah. 4 shirts, 2 lightweight, and I brought a couple T-shirts. And this one I'm wearing, I got on the Camino. I got it on the Camino.
It was given to you.
It was given to me.
The Camino provides.
Camino provides. Anyways, bring a lot of socks because your feet get really stinky when you walk 20 miles a day. Fleece jacket because it can get cold, especially when it starts raining, and it does rain.
Yeah.
Rain gear. I brought like those duck things, you know, fit into a little pack like this, and you know, cover your legs and, you know, cover your back, and it's waterproof, and it was a godsend because it rained the last 3 days, 2 days.
How dry were you when you got to camp?
Oh man, there's no way to stay dry when you're walking all day in the rain. It's just not possible. And it's really nice to have your fleece at that moment. Yeah.
You guys were in shape, but what about blisters and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, when we first got on the trail, I mean, Carl said, don't wear those hiking boots. And I was dubious, but then I was like, no, I think he's right. Because
Yeah.
when we were hiking, there were people who actually had to stop because they chewed up their feet so bad with hiking boots and they hadn't broken them in properly. And I mean, just horrible demolishing of their feet. So I wore tennis shoes. You wore sandals, right, Carl? Yeah, Carl wore sandals. I wore tennis shoes. Perfect.
But don't wear your shoes that are 5 years old with a, 1/8 inch of tread left on them.
Yeah. Eric, the red-haired guy, he decided to do that, and he paid the price. His feet hurt. And if you're a hiker, you know that hurting feet makes for a horrible hike.
He had a $50 blister with a quarter blister on top of that. He paid for it for a couple weeks after.
First aid kit, I had moleskin, I had some bandages, lots of Advil. I didn't bring any Benadryl, but I'm allergic to bees, so I brought a couple of EpiPens. Headlamps for, just in case you're out at night. And it is possible because you may get to a location, all the albergues are full, all the pensiones are full, you got to move on to the next town, and you might be doing that at night. Luckily, we didn't have to. We went at a perfect time, it seemed. Body wipes and baby wipes. Do it. It is so important. Camera, capture your memories, but don't forget to look around and see what you're experiencing. Sandals. Yeah, you got to let those feet dry out when they've been stuffed inside a shoe all day. Let them dry out and bring a pair of sandals. Trevor put his sandals, and I did too, in side pockets like that. Snacks. I didn't really need any. I brought some, but you get hungry. You walk a mile. There's a little cafe. You can grab a tapa and some coffee or agua con gas, which is like soda water.
Yeah. I brought a lot of snacks because I didn't know what I'd run into. So I brought a lot of Cliff Bars, a lot of like Gatorade powder to put in my water. I didn't know how hot it would be. And I used it all. And then I still got more at the cafes and stuff. So it was just nice being prepared somewhat and then, experiencing what it had to offer.
Is it water drink?
Oh, yes. Yep. It was really good too.
Bring a quick dry towel. Those things are like gold, and also a toiletry bag, with shampoo and soap. There's pharmacies everywhere there, though, and you can get the stuff that you need if you don't have it. And what was really nice was, I could have worn probably 2 pairs of hiking pants and 1 pair of shorts because just about everywhere we stayed had some kind of laundry facility, so you could get your stuff washed and dried in a day.
So you exchanged your money in Dublin?
Actually,
A little bit.
yeah, it all used euros. So actually, I would go to a bank and get money from my debit card as I needed it because on the trip. And they would give you a pretty decent conversion rate. And but I did bring some dollars with me, and Carl's like, well, that's crazy, man, because they're not going to give you a good conversion rate and all that stuff. Just have them take it directly off your debit card. And it actually worked, and every community we went to had an ATM machine, and you just put in your debit card just like you're going to your bank. It was pretty amazing. And then training. Yeah, training, just make sure that you can walk 12 miles 4 times in a week, 12 to 15 miles. I think that's what we averaged.
And just gauge how your feet are doing.
And, the elevation there was probably 3,000 feet. Here it was about 7,000. So I was plenty cardiovascularly ready. It was a challenge for some folks, but I think if you can do good, solid 10, 12 miles and not have to take a rest day and do it again the next day, you're fine.
Yeah,
some folks
a lot
did.
of people did. We decided not to, just I think for weight and But the people who did bring them really were happy they did.
You know, the only reason why I like hiking sticks is because when you walk that long, you get sausage fingers. You know, you get all the blood goes to your fingers from walking like that out. You're like, But when you got those hiking sticks, the blood doesn't seem to do that as much. Or like in my backpack, I would just put my hands up, like in that little thing right there, and it'd keep the sausage fingers from happening.
So were you walking on a trail, were you walking on the road, a path?
Yeah, I would say maybe 5% of our walking was on a road. The rest was on a trail. No.
Well, it's kind of odd, yeah. Sometimes single track, sometimes two track, sometimes it's right next to a road, sometimes it kind of like you see a road in the distance. I mean, you're never too far from a road per se, but
Usually it's meandering through like, farm.
Countryside, yeah.
Countryside.
Does anybody do it on bicycle?
yes, Carl actually did the whole Camino on a bicycle, didn't you? Yeah, half of it. So it is possible, and there were people doing it on bike, and you were really tempted to like, because they just swash right by you, and you just,
It kind of makes you jump a little bit sometimes.
I don't know if I like that. Exactly. Anyways, when you get comfortable walking that distance, put a pack on. And I think if you walk with 20 pounds, 25 pounds, you're good. But if you try and go a little heavier than that, what was yours?
Mine was like 30
Yeah,
pounds.
his was 30, and I thought that was too much. And I think
That's
you
because
thought
I
that
brought
was
my
too
own
much.
snacks, and I'm a snacker. But, also, if you get shoes, break them in. Get your shoes at least 3 months ahead of time and break them in.
And bring a positive mental attitude, because you're going to need it. I mean, we spent 5 days on the Camino. It's a taste. It's a taste of what the actual experience is like, because 799 kilometers is much different than 118 kilometers. Anyways, we did the bare minimum you can take or do to actually get a Compostela, and so that's what we did. But me, because I did it and I enjoyed the experience so much, I want to do a whole Camino hike at some point in the future before I get too old.
Do you have to start in Dublin, or can you start in?
No. You can start in Pied-de-Pont, I think it's called, Pied-de-Pont. Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Pont. You could start down in southern Portugal. I mean, there's several different routes you can take.
Get the material to verify.
I think you just have to go over 100 kilometers, right? On any section?
Get that book.
If you did it again, would you take a different route, or would you just do the same route?
Actually, I think I want to take the same route because it's the traditional route, the Camino Francés, just to be able to gauge if I can actually complete the entire 799 kilometers.
What's the connection with Ireland?
Ireland is a very Catholic country, and I think a lot of people just did their pilgrimages from Ireland to Spain. But there is a connection beyond that. It's either cultural or Celtic. I don't know, but there were tons of Irish people traveling to Spain and coming back from Spain, and they have this really symbiotic cultural exchange that I'm not quite sure of. I think it might be Celtic in nature, but yeah, they really enjoy each other's company. And they got bagpipes and hurdy-gurdies and all that stuff. Hurdy-gurdies, whatever, the things that sound like bagpipes. And anyways, I learned a lot of lessons, learned to enjoy my discomfort. I wasn't really used to hiking in the rain, and got used to hiking in the rain. I got sick like Trevor did, which is not really enjoyable, but if you just go with it, it's okay. Yeah.
So what happens when you get there?
When you get there?
So is there time? Do you sit there?
Yeah. Well, when you get there, the actual church, cathedral, it was under construction while we were there, but we're running a little late, sorry. But it's beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous inside, and it's massive, and there's there's clerics from all over the world in this place, and there's actually a mass for the pilgrims, and they throw these giant incense things around, and it's a thing to behold. And then in this small little office, in this nondescript little street, where no one seems to know where it is, you get in this line that lasts forever if you get there too late to get your Compostela and stuff like that. Yeah.
Then how did you get home?
Plane.
So, from there,
Well, we actually flew from
Well, let's go back to
Santiago back to Ireland.
So we got a one-way ticket to Bilbao,
Yeah.
or it was round trip, but from Dublin to Bilbao, and then from Compostela
We left
back to Dublin.
Santiago back to Dublin, yeah. And then we got some resources there in case you want to learn more about it. $2,500,
But
$2,400.
thanks for showing up,
12
everyone.
days.
Really
And we
appreciate
covered
it.
all the expenses, except for our food. Thank you.